Welcome, everyone, to a BPM RealTalk show. My name is Mark Kabe. I'm one of the co-founders of Prime BPM, and I will be the host of the show for the coming 12 months. And our entire mission actually is to sort of inspire and inform and empower the community of BPM practitioners around the world, because there's just so much experience around the world that's just trapped, and we really wanted to unleash that through this platform. So today, in our episode today, we're actually going to focus on navigating the process improvement landscape, and specifically in the not-for-profit sector. So I would really like to welcome Sharon Paulson, who's currently heading up digital workplace services at ECH. And before we dive into the bit of a discussion, Sharon, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background over the last sort of 20 years, that number of organizations that you have helped?
Yeah, it's amazing when you say 20 years. I was like, now I'm starting to feel really old. But yeah, I suppose over the last 20 years, I've spent a lot of my career either in local government or in the not-for-profit sector. And I think for me, it's been a real pull to go there. So the opportunity to help people make a difference is what gets me out of bed in the morning. And I think everyone I work with will tell you how passionate I am about doing that. And to be able to, if I can save someone 5 minutes a day that they're able to provide better service or a quality of service to someone in the community that needs it, then I know I've done my job for the day.
Amazing. And look, and this is quite interesting, right? Because as you talked about an opportunity for them to deliver the services in better and optimized environment, it can make a tremendous impact. No, that's fantastic. Just talk us about what is really the significance of a process improvement in not-for-profit organizations specifically, and how does it really relate in delivering the maximum impact back into the community and the business?
Yeah. So especially, or any not-for-profit, it's funds is always a struggle, and making sure that the funds are going to the right areas. So if you are too top heavy in your corporate or your back office, then you are taking away from those people or the funds to help those people who need it. In the aged care sector specifically, things are really changing. So the old days, it was a big bucket of money. You know, no one really kind of kept you to account. You'd have 75,000 people in the back office, you know, all duplicating information because you were able to. There's been significant reform in the sector over the last 10 years, and next year the government is doing a massive reform. And so it's going to be even harder for businesses or not-for-profits to be sustainable. So to do that, we have to become efficient. It is the only way that we're going to be able to be competitive and to be able to provide the types of services and the quality that the next cohort coming into the aged care. So we've got the baby boomers coming in. So post-World War II, different life, and they know what they want. So a lot of things have changed in the sector, but not a lot of work had been done about that foundation. So, you know, things were kind of getting plopped on top. They were moving pain points, and it was just moving things around. So I think where I came in and what I've been able to do is to start looking at those processes and what can we do? Where are the quick gains, and then where are the longer transformations that we need to start looking at and changing so that we can be here to continue the work that we're doing in the future.
Makes sense. So I think it's quite interesting because you keep talking about the funding aspect of it. So obviously the fundings are getting tighter and tighter. So I think the cost cutting is important in the back office to use those, whatever the funds, the resources you have, towards the frontline service delivery aspects. That makes sense. But does it also mean, Sharon, that there is a lot of competition for this funding in the space, right? Because there are probably a handful of donors, including government, that are supporting these not-for-profit sectors. So I'm sure, however, there are lots of charities and not-for-profit organizations, probably all of you are competing for the same funding. So how is justification of gaining those funds from these organizations, is that a bit of a challenge for you?
So the way aged care works in Australia is a little bit different. So it is actually the person in the community that applies and gets given the funding. And so yes, you're right, we're all competing for that same person though. And so it becomes about, a lot of it is word of mouth, the quality, how quickly you can respond, how quickly someone can get out to help those people as well. If you're waiting 6 months for someone to return a phone call, you're going to go to someone else. So huge challenge. We've got a huge challenge with workforce as well. A lot of shortages. COVID for us shut the borders. A lot of the home support workers are usually migrants that come in, and so we don't have that. We've got to work more efficiently for those people, that they're not getting so frustrated with the amount of admin, because on top of that, part of aged care is around the quality standards, and so they keep putting more and more compliance on top of us, less funding and more clients that we have to see. So it is a real conundrum, and if anyone is watching this from aged care in Australia, they will actually be nodding quite a lot with what we have to go through. And we're all in it for the right reasons, but it's how can we then do stuff to allow us to be competitive enough to be still be there.
So that means you haven't only just got funding constraints because of the lack of resources. There's a capacity constraints internally within the business. It looks like to me, but due to the regulatory standards, the compliance burden has increased significantly. So you got this sort of challenge coming from all these three different sort of angles. And I think fundamentally, if you got your processes correct, that are efficient and optimized, that potentially can help in all those three areas, right? Because if your team members can sort of execute those processes appropriately, there are no compliance challenges, and hopefully there are no penalties as a result of it. Because of funding constraints, optimized processes will help reduce cost, but also because of appropriate processes that people can follow, potentially you can do more with less resources. Is that sort of is that what's actually happening there?
Yep, that's exactly right. So I think for someone like me coming in saying we need to change processes, often a blocker is, well, is it going to save money? What are we going to do with the resources that we may no longer need? And how does the quality aspect, how is that going to be affected? Because a lot of time people see process improvement as cutting corners. So it is one thing I have loved about Prime. I think for me, the dream has always been to have this process dictionary that you could go to and say, we need to make a change. Who's it going to affect? What's it going to do? What's the benefit? Where are the holes? And so we've started being able to do that with doing our as-is processes and then doing those to-bes and showing people that end-to-end process and saying, look, here's your blocker. And if we do this, this is how much money you're going to save, but here's where the quality is still going to be fine. So
let's talk a little bit. So Sharon, let's talk a little bit more about this particular, actually, the change aspect, right? Because as everybody knows in our audience as well, here that process improvement involves tremendous amount of change. And it's actually a change from your frontline staff to your stakeholders, to your managers, and as well as even your digital teams, right? They are constantly driving change. So talk about your journey and how you've been able to sort of onboard these different layers on a change journey and how you've been able to sort of overcome, or are you still on that journey? Let's talk us a little bit more about that, how you've done it, what are you doing about it, and a bit about your journey on that.
Yeah. I think for me, it's all about collaboration. I'm not classically trained. I didn't do the uni degree. So I always say I can translate. So for me, it's always about the customer, and in our case, that is the staff, come first. Like we don't, when I started in IT, it was the tail wagging the dog, and it always used to really frustrate me because we weren't doing what was right for the business. So when I started at ECH 2 years ago, the first thing I did was went and met every single exec, every manager, went out in the field, went and met the maintenance people and just spoke to them like, tell me what's going on. What are your pain points? Sometimes people just need a little bit of a virtual hug because it was COVID. So, just to make them feel listened to. But then we were able to start doing some really quick wins that weren't onerous, but the benefit when people are like, oh, wow, it's being backed up. You've heard me. You're now actually able to do something. And then that filtered up as well. And so with meeting with the executive and managers monthly just to talk about what was going on, also to tell them what I was seeing because, it was sometimes siloed. So person X over here is doing something very similar to person Y, but they were doing, this way. So I was able to then start showing them that there were some synergies, and if we brought it together, we can bring some efficiencies. And
so the power of conversation, just going out. I think what I'm hearing from you is like, okay, over the last 2 years, it's just that initial journey of engagement with all layers. But it was really quite powerful. So you went out and met with everybody. Sort of drew out some key information of their pain points, and then, as I said, I think followed through with some of those promises that not just only hearing about it, but followed through some of the promises that kind of really helped there on the change journey. That actually sounds quite simple, but I think for some odd reasons we all, I think, kind of really bogged down into big transformation, big digital things, and we're just actually forgetting who are we doing this all for. That's okay. Interesting there. So in the last 2 years, then, Sharon, can you probably share some examples, or probably over the span of your 20 years of career, can you share some examples, the real examples where you have seen that change, and some tangible or some intangible changes that you've seen that have been realized, and how that actually all come about?
Yep, I'll give you an example in the last 2 years. So our home support workers are out there pretty much alone. They'll have a phone with a mobile app on there that they're clocking in or finding out stuff. And talking to one of the ladies out there, she said, it'd be really awesome if I could be like a Siri thing on my phone that I could ask it a question about, client's not home, what do I do? We took that and we just used Microsoft's bot, and we created what we called Robot. So remote helper bot. They use it all the time. So what it did was it reduced the calls coming back into their team leader, and they were able to get the answer while they were out there with the client. So able to give them, that attention without saying, I've just got to be on the phone on hold with waiting for this. And the feeling we had an employee of the year dinner recently, and so all the execs had to sit on, a table with someone, and I ended up sitting on the table with the girl whose idea it was, and just she was like so stoked that this, had come out. And to be honest, I would never have thought of something like that if she had not come up with this, if we could have a Siri. So I think that gave the team across the organisation just so much credibility that when you're doing something right when people are coming to you with ideas.
This is it. This is quite amazing. And it's really, really interesting point that you actually bring. There's so much quality ideas and suggestions and innovation actually it's trapped there at the front line. And we're actually not tapping into that as an organization, right? We are chasing the trends and big new methodologies or big upcoming new technology, but the simple thing like what you just gave, it's actually quite phenomenal, right? I'm sure that has saved tremendous amount of time and effort from your operators to provide the information, from your frontline staff picking up the phone and chatting with those operators, and in the process, most important one is that really the customer experience, right? Because that individuals who is receiving the care is being able to really see the quick response. It's quite phenomenal. So you can see again. And that way, as you said, the aged care world is quite competitive. So you all are competing for the same person's care. So if he or she is seeing this response, I'm sure it really puts the ECH brand in a quite powerful manner. That's quite amazing. Now, let's do a bit of a flip side there, Sharon. I'm sure you probably had your fair share of few challenges, obstacles, and failures. Now, it's always good that we talk about a number of good things. Let's talk about some of the failures and what probably your learnings were from those.
Yeah, I think, you're always learning. And, even now we're doing a project that's going to go to pilot on the 1st of December. And I know I've done so many of these, but I still know that we haven't got it all right, and there'll be some learnings. But I think, as I was maturing through the workforce, and you get a little bit of arrogance around you. I know what's best. That's why I learnt now you collaborate. And I, made a change to a system which I knew would save so much, so much efficiency and reduce time that the finance people were having to do stuff, which I learnt now never, ever mess with the finance people. But I didn't communicate it. I didn't collaborate it. And it was absolute debacle. But I think... And so from that's where I took those lessons about engaging, collaborating, making sure that you're getting the input from those people doing it, because I'm sitting here in my own little world, not knowing all of what's going on out there. So, so I think there's that, there's sometimes just managing change. I get so excited and so passionate about this that I find sometimes it really hard with very risk-averse people, and how do I deal with them? Because something like robot was, people were trying to stop it. It's like, why can't we just try it? Or even the prime. So for me, some people couldn't see the value in it until we actually showed them. So I think, to be honest, I probably fail every day at something. And I'm always learning and trying to adjust. And I think it's about knowing it's okay to fail. And you just kind of pivot and try other ways, or go to someone who's smarter than me.
Well, and then this is quite amazing, right? I think sometimes some organizations have a bit of a taboo around the failures. I think if they were to learn to embrace the failures, I think there's probably a lot more improvement and innovation would actually come out of the organization if they would learn to embrace the failure. Quite interesting. That it just probably it seems quite common sense to engage and collaborate with your executives, with your managers, with your frontline when you're making any change in the organization. Why do you think people don't do it? What's your viewpoint on that, and what have you experienced with it? Why don't they do it?
Yeah. I think I'll just put it in context of the not-for-profit. Everyone's busy, limited funds, small teams, lots to do. And I'll think about my digital team. If we actually put on a piece of paper how much we have to do, we'd have quite a lot of pieces of paper, and all has to be done now. So I think people just get so busy about trying to get stuff done that they forget that it's going to take twice as long if you're not actually bringing the people in that you need to be involved. So we've got a new CEO, been here for about a year and a half, and she's also incredibly collaborative. And so that has really helped the culture here for people to stop. Have you spoken to the people? Have you collaborated? Have you got their input? And that's a must-have now.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing here, I think if there was probably a proper effort estimation and a prioritization on the key initiatives, what you're working on, would help in proper engagement and collaboration. Because I think everybody has that intention, but they're unable to do it because of everybody's busy and there are too many things going on, too many priorities, and everything is a priority. So how do we prioritize the priorities? So do a proper effort estimation and prioritize the priorities would actually help. I understand. That's good. Look, fantastic. This has been a quite insightful conversation. And like I said, everybody has these similar common challenges, just been tackled differently from a sector point of view. Any particular peculiarities, Sharon, because you have done stints in local government as well as in commercial organization, any particular peculiarities that you see that are probably quite unique to not-for-profit sector?
I would think the type of people that you have working in not-for-profit. So it's not a high salaried career path. And I think so what you have is people that are very passionate about what they do. And that's not to say that people in the commercial or government aren't. It's just a different flavour to it. And so the customer or client is just the be-all and end-all, which is how it should be, but sometimes to the detriment of other things. They're actually harming what can happen to the client because they don't want to change something or things like that. So I think that's pretty much the peculiarity of it.
Makes sense. Question understood. Excellent. All right. Well, we're almost at the 20-30 minute mark there, Sharon. So any sort of final thoughts or words of wisdom?
Yeah. I think for me,
from your side.
I think for me, one of the things that I've started getting the executive to frame is around changing how failure is seen. And there's a way of doing things called safe to fail. And we're now calling that safe to learn. So that we're actually taking away the stigma that's attached with that. And I think don't be afraid to try. You can fail, you pick yourself up and you learn and then you try again and you'll do it better. So that would probably
be amazing. And I think it's you probably hit the nail on the head, is that there's so much potential sitting inside the organization, but because of that, hey, how would it be perceived if we were to fail, restricts them to come out of the shell and actually share that. So quite amazing. Well, look, thank you, Sharon, for sharing all the insights today. It's quite phenomenal, actually. And I'm sure our audience will really appreciate, especially the individuals from not-for-profit sector, on hearing some of the challenges what you're on, so they can feel they're not alone. We all are on the same journey. And I'm sure also all other folks who are navigating the process improvement landscape are on a similar journey there. So really great grateful for your time today and sharing all the insights and valuable experience of yours. To our viewers as well, thank you for joining us today. I'd like to stay connected with BPM RealTalk. A number of BPM practitioners around the world are going to keep sharing these best practices. And our objective of keeping you guys inspired and informed will remain the same. Once again, thank you for joining myself today, Sharon, and the audience. Until next time.